Alright, draft physics video. More raggy comments. Yay. We might get to the other guy's video, we'll see. Yeah. Other wacky guy, we'll just see how it goes. So these are unaccountable commenters. They don't even have icons for their accounts on YouTube. They put nothing on the line. They just make a bunch of bold statements for which, there's nobody ensuring this as having any credibility from any source whatsoever. And they just do it in this rude, sloppy manner, and somehow that's the respectable and decent and honorable way to make direct accusations. And it's really not. It's what the cowards do and more. Yeah, not the men. Anyway, so this, whatever it is. Anyway, what facts are you claiming I haven't accepted? So they think that facts are anything their physics says, like Heisenberg is a fact. It's not, first off, they call it a principle, not a law. This idea that there is no being in the same place. There's no having momentum and being in one place at the same time. That somehow can't happen physically. It's not a law. It's called a principle. And second, there's no evidence of it. All there's evidence of is that, yes, it is impossible for us, especially, even if we could measure these things, and we can't, but even if we could, to do them at the same place, the same moment in time, would be tricky, because the same moment in time is a very small thing in quantum time. A quanta of time is very small. It's hard to measure two things in that small amount of time. Can't even get your ruler out realistically. Can't even really make the measurement. It's like measuring how fast something's going without it moving. It's hard to do. Anyway, the fact that light appears to travel at sea in all inertial frames. So again, an inertial frame is another made-up piece of your physics. This idea that there's any such thing as a frame containing two entities moving the same way. That somehow they're in this special, get smartian bubble of invincibility frame, and that all of a sudden now the rules of physics are just inside their frame is bullshit. And you have no evidence that inertial frames even exist, that there is such a thing as a frame, that it means anything whatsoever, except, yes, the two things have some things in common, and the things in common will mean certain things will be true in terms of their relationship to each other. But the fact that light always travels a Planck distance in a Planck amount of time, and it doesn't give a fuck about your stupid frame, and nothing, there's no evidence indicating there's some other truth that's true. Light travels the speed of light. It covers a certain distance in a certain amount of time, period. And time is not something you get to say only happens in frames in a certain way. There's no evidence of that. You don't have any evidence or proof. It's not a fact. So anyway, the fact that the diffraction pattern cannot mathematically happen, so he says it cannot mathematically, this is a fact, he says. So I'm deleting this comment, because these aren't facts, asshole. The fact that the diffraction pattern cannot mathematically happen, where's the evidence of that, if light is a discrete particle? Where has that ever been proven? Where? It's the simplest pattern in the universe, on, off, on, off. It can be mathematically constructed from a bunch of causes. You can invent something particle that would duplicate what Huygens does, but you'd be inventing it. The idea of science is to come up with the right answer, not any answer. I mean, we all know what the variables are going in, and that those variables are what's responsible. Now, you say the photon is being interfered with without hitting electrons, when everything else in physics points to the fact that the only thing that affects a photon is an electron. It has to hit one. Feynman would say that. When he says a line like, cutting through all the bullshit, a photon goes from point A to point B in a straight line, unless it hits an electron. That's Feynman's quote. Cutting through all the bullshit. You don't have any facts defending this crap. Newton's laws would be invalid if gravity was caused by particle bombardment. A lie. It's just a complete pile of shit. You have no evidence of that. No argument defends that. They actually have a thing called mock gravity. Feynman again. I can bring up Feynman again. He said it works perfectly, except it has another problem. It does gravity perfect. It just doesn't do flying through space perfect. But the particle theory works. It explains gravity perfectly. Idiot. Also, the fact that this is true no matter how much the iron cars suck their guts in unless they become infinitesimally small, in which case gravity would stop working altogether. So again, you don't understand the original proposed theory of mundane particles, ultra mundane particles. So of course they were very small. And you just also don't understand mock gravity. The same theory used because it's so mathematically perfect in creating a quantizable force. All right. The fact that the math wouldn't just work out if we adopted your stupid theory. So again, go to the Wikipedia page on mock gravity. There's nothing that doesn't work out when it comes to the theory of gravity from using an external push force. It works perfectly. Again, gravity is just a convergence. You want to imagine that gravity is some other special thing. No, it's just a convergence. It's just the opposite of a fucking light bulb, jackass. But you're too stupid to know that. Alright, the fact that you're a hypocrite, well, you're a slandering, lying piece of shit for inventing flock of fish physics. So again, you're saying the same thing again, ignoring the argument that's made, which is things just don't magically move. Everything just magically moves. My atoms magically all move through your magical force. The little bits have to do the moving, is the School of Fish analogy's purpose, is to explain that gravity isn't a big thing force. It's actually moving the little things, retard. But you're too stupid to understand that. And again, there's been no response to my points on Michelson-Morley, the two-slit experiment, the fact that there's no theoretical basis for LIGO statements about converting matter into bent space. None of these things have been responded to. Anyway, adopted, or the facts of the less than stellar evidence surrounding the notion of light particles being bent by anything called gravity. The fact that, let's see, flock of fish physics then complain that physicists invent virtual particles and bend space. Well, again, I'm not using the metaphor as anything close to the description of the actual function. So I'm not the one who has that liability. I was using it as an explicit analogy, pointing out that, see, a school of fish doesn't move unless the bits inside of it move. And that's what's happening in real physics. The quanta is doing the moving. And I explained what the quanta is and how, if you recognize its existence in the first place, if you acknowledge the existence of the force that creates gravity, then guess what? You can use that same force to create magnetism, loser. And that's how you unify physics, dumbass. But again, this is all way over your fucking stupid head, because you don't want to obey any the things that are so obvious in the physical universe right now. What do you think? Do you think galaxies are absorbing matter? Or do you think they're expelling matter, retard? What's your theory? Shit for brain. And what kind of logic do you use to defend it? Stupid fucks. Oh, just so obnoxious. Alright, the fact that all this shit has been pointed out to you already, nothing has been pointed out, nothing's been demonstrated. Piro used faked experimental data, completely different. Let's change the circumstances of the experiment and then say and pretend we did a controlled, fair experiment. That's all that's been what has been pointed out. I'm the one who pointed out the highest paid physics instructors in the country aren't teaching physics honestly. They're not describing either the experiments, the way the experiments are actually conducted, nor is their math consistent in the sense they say Huygens does this and then the other experiment Huygens does that. And they do two different things. And then somebody points out that no, the real math is over here on this obscure page on a forum. So yeah, we don't have any expectation that the highest paid university professors actually understand how to do their math. That's supposed to be the expectation, that the professors are wrong and the forum page is right. And you've pointed out something to me. I think you've illustrated exactly my point, that your physics is made out of bullshit. If your argument is Yale, MIT, and Stanford don't know how to do two-slit math, if that's your fucking argument, I win, jackass. Shit. The fact that water waves create a different pattern and you've seen a video evidence of such. No, I haven't. And as I've pointed out, I pointed out the video. You want to sit there and say that, okay, these are two double slit experiment, single slit experiment. We're going to put in diffracted waves into the single slit and create a diffraction pattern because the source waves are diffracted. And then we're going to do the double slit, but we're going to do it with nice slow waves, no diffraction, no interference going in. And we're going to call that the same experiment. So you're defending an overt fraud. I mean, it's an overt fraud, overt changing the experiment, the experimental conditions. So you're conceding that you will just overtly lie to defend your God. So that was the original accusation here. That this is all God of the gaps fucking science. It has nothing to do with people being scientific or rational or looking for the truth. You're all religious fanatics, okay, are trying to mystify the universe so you can put your fucking unicorns in it with your own name and blinking red lights on it or something. Your egos are so out of control that you will not let the universe be a mundane mechanical thing. Because that's too deflating to your fucking godlike egos. You're probably a free willer. Amazing asshole. Okay, so that you're shown to be a defender of a lie. That was shown to be a lie, a distortion, completely illegitimate as anything called evidence in this argument. You can't use interference waves going into the single slit and say it's a fair experiment. That's just bullshit. So you're caught, you're revealed as a fake, a phony, a fraud, a guy who passes bad checks in science. All right. The fact that experiments like Michelson-Morley, again we went over this, LOGO, and laser reflectors on the moon all prove light travels without respect to an absolute frame. So again, absolutely no such proof. The light that hits the moon is a beam that's 100 feet across, retard. 100 feet across. Maybe more. They don't hit the little reflector. They hit the entire spot that the lunar landing, they hit the module, they hit the spacecraft, they hit the fucking car, they hit everything in the area. So no demonstration with that. See, you just don't know anything about any of this stuff, right? You don't know the truth. You're just a fucking proselytizer for your religion. You haven't even read the Bible of your own religion. You're completely ignorant of the facts, and you're just reciting what the Pope tells you. You know, the peer-reviewed Pope journal. Oh, God, you pathetic fuck. So again, and LIGO doesn't have anything to do with absolute frame arguments or evidence. And certainly Michelson-Morley, as I have pointed out, has a huge problem that none of you people are addressing, which is that beam splitters don't create two equal beams of light. The one that goes, the beam that's diffracted first ends up spreading, and it spreads for the entire distance it travels. So the two beams, when they are recombined, one of them has spread 5 times more than the other one has spread. Maybe more than 5 times more. And where have you dealt with that fact? Where have you accounted for it? That both beams are diffracted, both beams are, Newton ringed, by the fact that they go through a diffraction gradient. I actually have one here somewhere in this mess. Yeah, it was here just a minute ago. I saw it. I was looking right at it. No, it's clear. See, that's part of the problem. Very clear. But yes, this really fucks up light, the diffraction gradient. And that's what happens when you send light through a beam splitter, asshole. Alright, well, anyway, enough of that. The fact that the standard model of the atom structure has been observed directly with electron microscopes. Complete lie. You don't even know how electron microscopes work, and you don't even understand the fact that, hey, it's called an electron microscope, so must have something to do with electrons. We haven't even seen an electron, so how could we see anything with an electron microscope? You know, that kind of thing. But I mean, it's really less, they're using much bigger things. The only reason why they're using an electron microscope is because you can't do the observation problem with small apertures. Makes it impossible to use photons. So you have to use electrons. But it's far from an ideal way of, it's throwing giant things at big things. It's not a perfect, it's far from a brilliant system of observation, and it's a long way from anything direct when you understand exactly how electron microscopes work, which is based on reflecting and collecting electrons as they float off the surface, for fuck's sake. Alright, the fact that particles other than photons were used in single and double slit experiments, and they all exhibit diffraction and interference. That fact means what? The fact that when they're sent one at a time, this still happens, which means they have to interfere with themselves. So it's nothing like waves or water waves or any of this crap, because they're interfering with themselves. Again, and you haven't explained where this pilot wave thing comes from. Nothing. You have no explanation for this. Oh, shit. And again, there's plenty of theory regarding the fact that you can imagine that electrons, that photons hit electrons, and we know that electrons move and that photons are re-emitted by electrons. That's a known fact. And we know that electrons don't like electrons. So if you shoot electrons at something and you hit other electrons, you can be pretty damn sure the other electron's going to leave at a different angle. Not exactly the same angle. Anyway, the fact that particles other than photons are interference. Alright, the fact that, so he's claiming these are facts, and that somehow they're facts that I have denied. So I never denied that, so he says, so that's another one of your lies, an overt lie. Where did I not acknowledge the fact that other things will exhibit a change in their direction when they hit electrons. Where did I say that can't happen? And if you look at the actual evidence, you'll realize that it's perfectly consistent with my theory, because the bigger you make the thing, the less good the pattern is. The pattern gets weaker and weaker the bigger you make the crap going through. And again, why don't you explain to me, it's one thing to talk about a photon breaking into two waves, and those waves interfering with each other, and then the photon ending up in one location. But why don't you explain how a buckyball does that? How 37 or 64 atoms in an arrangement create a wave in front of them. How they break, how the buckyball breaks into two waves, and then the two waves go forward, and then it does the math and figures out where to go. Why don't you explain how a buckyball does that, retard? Where's your facts explaining how that makes any sense at all? Shit for brain. Alright, the fact that double-slit interference math taught at university is a simplified model of the same vein that the two-bodied model is a vast simplification of the Earth-Moon system, because it doesn't account for the sun. Again, it's physics taught at institutions that are famous for teaching physics correctly, not incorrectly. It's just a lie to sit there and say, oh yeah, they premise their lectures by saying this isn't the truth. This isn't what I mean to say. No, none of that happened, asshole. So again, model the same vein that the two-bodied model is a vast simplification of the Earth-Moon system, because it doesn't account for the sun. I don't even understand why somebody would worry about. You're the one who believes in relativistic frames, so you know, if the sun's effect is well, I don't even know who's worried about the two-bodied solution. And again, that's not taught in physics either. Where in physics do they teach the relationship between the Earth and the Moon, and they don't mention the sun? They'll just say, yeah, well, we're not going to bother, you know, complicating the field equations by including, you know, the gravitational effects of Pluto. But yes, they're there. They're just not significant. Big difference between ignoring something insignificant and having a whole theoretical model that's wrong, plus describing single-slit diffraction inaccurately, which all the professors have done. So show me where in the two, when they talk about Moon-Earth gravitation, where they misrepresent the truth about the gravitation between the Earth and the Moon. All right, anyway. The sun, other planets, for that matter, every bit of matter in the universe, and it's nonetheless useful and necessary to learn. Well, again, all the other matter in the universe has 0.000000 effect, you know, one effect on the. It doesn't even meet the margin of error in what we can measure. So why would it be significant? It's outside the margin of error. In terms of it can't possibly create an error. It's so far out of the margin of error. The fact that engineers use software that you could learn, and that you could use to model single and double slit patterns. Well, again, software is just doing a mathematical formula. I've shown the mathematical formula. I've shown them doing the math, and I've demonstrated that the mathematical formula doesn't create the true two-slit pattern. That it doesn't create the two frequencies superimposed on each other. I've shown that. So what, the computer doesn't have anything to do with this, you jackass. Computers just do the formula, asshole. They just perform the math. The fact that the math isn't correct is another issue. And again, where have you demonstrated? Where have you actually done the experiment and done the math with real numbers? Where have you shown? Well, look, yeah, here's the math we're going to put, here's the numbers we're going to put in, here's the experiment. Let's see if the experiment agrees with the math. Where have you even done that? You haven't. All right. You could do the single slit double but without the simplifying assumptions taught in universities. Well, again, you keep making claims, excuses for what's taught at the university, describing it this way. The professors don't say that's what they're teaching. They're quite convinced that what they're teaching is correct. So you're just lying some more. The fact is, they have to make 2 slits in the single slit experiment. They have to make it into 2 waves because there's no natural cause for the 2 waves. They have to create an artificial source of 2 waves. The fact that gravity induces time dilation and therefore gravity is... Okay, so you're saying it's a fact that gravity induces time dilation. So if Einstein had argued that velocity imposes time dilation, so just saying it means it's so. Because you don't have any evidence. You can't make a distinction between the acceleration caused by gravity and the acceleration caused by anything else. And Einstein will tell you that the 2 things are the same. So it's really just about how fast something's going. Asshole. The fact that gravity induces time dilation and therefore gravity is explained as a bend in space-time continuum and not just a force. Well, it doesn't mean not being just a force is one of the most significant things in the universe to be, is a force, idiot. So I don't even understand how that makes any sense. But the fact is, you've never proven time to be anything you can dilate. You have no evidence, no hard evidence that time can be dilated. All that exists is really strong evidence that clocks can be broken, that you can measure time wrong. But there's no evidence that light travels from this distance in a different amount of time because I do something to this and this. And the only way I can make it a different amount of time is I have to change the amount of distance. So if I'm shooting light from this end and I'm receiving it at this end, and I move both of these things in a direction, the simple truth is this thing is running further away and the distance is longer. And it'll take longer for the light to get here. Because it's a longer distance, jackass. It has to cover more plank tiles in the road. And the fact that you're too stupid to figure that out and want to make up this bullshit that somehow your special frames take tiles out of the road doesn't have the tiles in it anymore because you have magic powers that can bend time. And when all there is evidence that velocity breaks clocks. That's what the evidence demonstrates. Atomic clocks, metabolism clocks, mechanical clocks. They're vulnerable. Clocks use a mechanical mechanism to measure time, and velocity can change the mechanical mechanism. Just like gravity can change the effectiveness of a pendulum, idiot. The fact that the quantum eraser experiment, so again, an experiment that has again, there's nothing proven in any quantum eraser experiment, in the sense that if they're using polarization, they have to account for the fact that polarization isn't a 50-50 thing. As I've pointed out, and no response from any of you cunts, that if polarization is actually like analogizable to bars and things that are going in the direction of the bars go through, things that are opposed to the bars don't go through. The simple truth is that all the things going the wrong way get blocked, but some of the things going the right way hit the bars and get blocked. So it's not 50-50, and if you're expecting it to be 50-50 in your results, then you're made a mistake, a wrong assumption, and your experiment is useless. So why don't you show me the erasure experiment done and show me the actual statistical values based on the fact that, oh yes, we understand that polarization, just like a interferometer, just like a light beam splitter, might not produce 2 perfectly equal beams. Why don't you admit that? That you people keep assuming everything is some certain way, and you haven't proven it to be that way first. You haven't demonstrated the reliability of your own hardware in your own stupid experiments. You're giving it so little fucking thought because it's you're all working for God. Okay. All right. The quantum eraser experiment proves that quantum indeterminacy is not merely due to limitations of observation. How does it do that? But are due to fundamental randomness. So again, none of that has been proven. So again, your claim that this is proven or a fact that everybody has to accept is ludicrous as saying that you've proven Heisenberg or that you've proven Huygens. It's nonsense. You haven't proven either one. Your evidence is weak as shit, and your theory is fundamentally nonsensical in that it'll never produce unification, and you're just using God of the gaps answers to solve problems. Instead of actually coming up with a physical explanation, you're coming up with magical explanations that don't answer the question. But are due to fundamental randomness that occurs at the subatomic level. Again, lie. No evidence that that's where it comes from. Unless you are okay with non-locality. Yeah, this whole idiotic notion that now you're even talking about spooky action at a distance, and you have no chance of ever proving that nonsense because it doesn't happen, jackass. Jeez. Yeah, I'm not okay with anything called. I'm not okay with anything in your magical land where stuff moves faster than the speed of light. Covers distance faster than light covers distance. The fact that you never bothered to learn what terms like non-locality mean, it means that you think that there's some capacity for some attribute to change in another location without it having to communicate with a force. And that doesn't happen, shithead. The fact that you have a bad attitude towards knowledge. You have a bad attitude towards the truth. You're a lying piece of scum, as you've pointed out. You'll defend liars like Piro, who provide evidence that isn't evidence. It's a completely dishonest misrepresentation of the actual experiment. Again, the single slit with plane waves going into it will not create an interference pattern. It'll create a nice round wave, period. One wave going one direction, no bullshit. And so you liars, in an effort to lie to defend your lying science, you're just demonstrating how corrupt the science really is, because look who's defending it. A bunch of liars. I mean, you're as bad as your congregation, right? So yes, this whole edifice of Catholic science needs to be torn down, because it's all as bad as the hypocrites that are the congregation. Which is what we already pointed out. You didn't point out anything. You didn't provide anything called evidence. You didn't provide anything called facts. You didn't provide anything. You're just a liar. Okay. So some asshole called, just presume he's an asshole, another stupid unpronounceable name. These are all trolls, I guess, of some kind. Anti something blah blah, Danza Farka good big, blank blank. So yes, let me just say, I guess if you have a stupid name, don't post, because I'm just going to start deleting stupid names. I mean, realistically, you can't call yourself something reasonable, fuck off. Science really has a problem with scaling. No, it has a problem with honesty. At the quantum level, they name it something. At our size, they name it something else. No, they name things like holes, and they'll call them antiparticles. They don't have any respect for words and vocabulary. Name it something else. At planet level, they rename it again. Well, again, I don't think you have any real evidence of that. There's no planet level electron. They don't rename electrons some moons or something. I don't even know what you're saying. I mean, as a general statement, I don't. This isn't science's problem. Science's problem is they have an agenda. They want to create a unicorn universe, a God of the Gaps bullshit universe. Rename it again, and at the universe size they rename it. What? Why are you doing this? Geez, I don't know what that means. On the metric system, we got gram. Yes, well, that's a whole nother subject. The fact that their units are completely fucked up and they haven't fixed it. They never even fixed Benjamin Franklin's mistake. So, yeah, your comment isn't very useful. It's becoming more and more clear to me that the people on this channel who argue, oh, no, it's the same thing I already read before. He had some other comment. Well, it doesn't matter because he's not welcome. Thank you, Mr. Grammar Asshole. Obviously, I'm capable of writing proper English, but you people are, frankly, not worth it. I hate to say it, I really do, but it's the truth. Philip, if I ever need a proofreader, I'll get in contact with you. So again, he's complaining because he made some mistakes in his grammar, and somebody pointed them out. And that's too much for him. Alright, so, let's see, is there anything else? No, so somewhere there was more comments. I don't know where all the comments went, but I just deleted shitheads, so yes. You either can make better, more specific arguments to the arguments made in the videos, or fuck off. Alright, yeah, there's more here on the video. It says there's 8 replies and there's only 2 showing. I don't know what that means. So that was the bent space argument. Because this is the wrong video. Gotta find the right video. Einstein's relativity is wrong. That's the other guy who's full of shit. It's a world full of people full of shit. Okay, so here's a couple of replies. Let's see how this goes. Towards knowledge how it works, which I already pointed out. We didn't point out anything. So he edited it since here, I think. Already pointed out, which is what I already pointed out. You didn't point out anything. Again, you have pointed out nothing with a fact, with evidence. Oh, and I know it's LIGO, just for the record, in case some stupid viewer of yours wants to make an insane snipe comment. Well, here you are, just all you make is useless tripe comments. It's just hilarious. Alright, so some idiot called Win by 4 o'clock. I don't know if this video he deleted it himself or what, but anyway. It's true, and the story gets even worse. He thought that all he needed to do was find a new interpretation. So again, where's your evidence that I did any of this crap that you're paraphrasing? I mean, I've done everything public. All the videos are public. I mean, I'm not interpreting. I'm looking for a more rational explanation than Copenhagen and many worlds and all this other bullshit. This fake crap that photons see a slit and they decide, well, should we Huygens or not Huygens? Yeah, all that kind of nonsense is if that's how you think reality works, I say you're a fucking idiot. So I went out looking for a non-idiotic explanation of physics, because clearly you people are idiots that'll fall for complete crap. Some stupid notion that photon goes in, creates radar, then decides based on what the radar says where to go. It's nonsensical rubbish, despite the fact that he didn't even know the problem. So again, where's your evidence that I didn't know the problem? Prove that, liar. He thought all the math would work out. The math, it already exists, the relationship math. We already know the slit width and the frequency of the light and the distance from the target, that these are all going to be the variables involved in the output. The question is, how are they involved? the question, that's what's at stake here. We're arguing about how it happens, asshole. Not the fact that it happens, asshole. But here clearly some of these things you don't think happen. Like you think water diffracts in the single slit experiment, which is just nonsense. That he doesn't even know the problem. He thought all the math would work out and comply with his theory. Again, the math is just the relationships. I'm not going to redo the inverse square law for a light bulb, asshole. I don't need to redo that math. The math works, and it's perfectly consistent with the idea of a randomized even pressure force going the other way for gravity, asshole. That's what Maxwell's math does, jackass. It's not at all inconsistent with a straight line force where time is a real function in a solid universe. The math works just fine under those circumstances. Shit for brain. Alright. He thought all the math would work out and comply with his theory even though he didn't know jack shit about the math. So again, what math do you say proves me wrong? What mathematical equation demonstrates where's the bent space in Einstein's field theory? Where's Huygens in the two-slit math? Show it to me, asshole. Show it to me, asshole. Prove Heisenberg with a statement in math. Go ahead, show it to me. Show me how photons are bent by gravity in the math without first saying, well, it happens because we've decided how much a photon weighs. You know, that it has mass. That it's actually a piece of matter. Where did you prove that? Oh, that's right, nowhere. Even though he didn't know, so you're the one who doesn't know shit about the math. When he was pointed to the MMX experiment, so now we're back to Michelson-Morley's, which, again, 3 videos ago, I pointed out a huge flaw in Michelson-Morley, and there hasn't been any response at all from any of you trolls to what was pointed out. So how has it been accounted for? The fact that the beam splitter creates light that diverges many times more, the two beams, and they're not the same beam being combined. Where have you accounted for that? The detector and the receiver are both moving. Already this is enough to show that he didn't even understand the experiment. Well, I'm just saying, I think understanding the fact that if you don't account for the distance changes created by that movement, again, you're saying you know how photons reflect off mirrors, and that you know that they reflect exactly the same off a moving mirror that they reflect off a mirror standing still, and that you know that by some facts. I'm saying you don't have any such facts. You're just making assertions out of your ass. Okay, his go-to argument is along the lines of there aren't any real forces. Amazing. I'm the one arguing there are. I'm saying there aren't fields, idiot. So you can't even get that one right. I'm saying all the forces are real. They're all one force. They're all made of one thing. Photons, magneton, graviton, all the same thing. At a frequency, we call it a photon. Polarized, we call it magnetism. Unpolarized, we call it gravity. All the same thing. Let's see, but I'm not going to... okay, his go-to argument is along the lines of there aren't any real forces. So he has quote marks on that when I've never said that. So what are you quoting, asshole? It's a lie. My argument is exactly the opposite. The force, I've made videos. I just explicitly talk about how there's two things. Matter and the forces. That's it. Really, this is just translated as everything follows mechanics. but I'm not going to accept mechanics that I don't like. So again, you're the one not providing mechanics. My system is all mechanical, all physical. Nothing happens by any magic. If something moves towards something else, it did it because it was pushed there, okay? Or else it's a ton. It's a photon moving the speed of light. It doesn't get pushed anywhere. It never slows down. It never stops. It's always moving the speed of light. It never stops moving the speed of light, and the only thing it can do is get trapped in a circular pattern. So that's all you have in the universe. Things moving the speed of light, they get trapped, and then when they're trapped, we call it matter. But I'm not going to accept any mechanics that I don't like. So again, you don't have any mechanics. Bent space is not mechanics. Again, what are you saying causes the attraction? What are you saying causes repulsion? You don't have any explanation for why things move towards each other or why things move away from each other. I do, jackass. I have a mechanical explanation, jackass. My mechanics are logical, logical, logical. And defended by evidence, evidence, evidence. His hopes might be that if he says it enough times, people will actually think he's logical. And again, you're the one with these bent space, dark matter, Heisenberg, Huygens, bullshit fantasy descriptions of reality. No evidence for them existing at all. These little magical forces that do all the work. And it's illogical and stupid. Just as I can logically point out that the difference between a galaxy and a solar system is solar systems are collecting matter where galaxies are expelling matter, and as I can point out that push is a much simpler force than pull. And it's not stuff you even thought of. You never even thought about this subject enough to even those things to occur to you, you stupid cunt. The further back I look into his videos, the dumber it gets. Well, again, that statement proves nothing. No evidence of the dumbness in asking the questions and in finding a much better answer. And that's what going back in my videos you'll see is my first effort. Some of them were mistakes, and clearly I fixed those mistakes in a rather spectacular manner, in the sense that just pursuing a better answer than Copenhagen and many worlds, I found a unification theory. He doesn't even understand aberration of light. Scatter. Let's see, what's to understand? We can't see single photons. If we could see single photons, then all of these subjects would be mute, because then we would see that they travel in a straight line, and that they have to leave a source on a straight path, and that straight path can be a very long distance with only a tiny angular difference, but that tiny angular difference is going to make a difference. Nobody needs to say anything more on that. The fact that light is very small and has incredible resolving power, but we can't access its resolving power because of the fact that the light has to interfere with some stupid, idiotic obstacle, an aperture that has electrons on it. Also, the transistors in your computer only work because of QM. I forgot that one. So that's just another statement completely unprovable by anything. QM isn't even a thing, idiot. What's QM? Huygens or Heisenberg? Is that QM? Which one of those is? Are those both QM? What's QM besides a statement Newton made about rings and about sheets of glass and refractive indexes? So this is all stuff Newton already knew. He didn't call it QM. He didn't need any QM to observe the fact that, yes, photons behave a very in a predictable, probabilistic manner when you put them through certain process. And the argument is what's the process? And my argument is the process is absorption and readmission by electrons. Your fantasy is the photons just magically do this by magic force. Alright, scaling argument. I don't know why this scaling argument's here twice. Isn't it here twice? Didn't I read that before? Well, anyway, I'm not going to bother with that. This idiot did reply to it, though, so I'll read that. I think what you say has a grain of truth. Obviously, there is a scaling problem in physics in that one of the reasons that QM and GR have not been reconciled yet. Well, it's not a scaling problem between GR and QM. One is a quantized thing, and one is some idiotic notion that time isn't a function. So you can't break time and then talk about Planck quantities. So yes, there's no resolution between those two things because frankly, one of them is explicitly dependent on quantization and one is explicitly dependent on breaking any kind of rules. But that probably means either. A, there is an inherent irreconcilability between the scales, and the infinities that arise in the equations are fundamental. Well, that wouldn't even be the problem with the equations is that fundamentally, let's see, I'm just trying to think of how you could, scaling gravity. The only way you could do it is you'd have to make GR you'd have to replace quantum mechanics with GR, but I don't think you could ever come up with quantum mechanics that would describe gravity, because it's a force. And they're not accounting for the actual physical entity. Anyway, there is an inherent irreconcilability between scales and, well, whatever. Our current models are incomplete, whatever that means. I don't think the correct response is to go flock of fish. So again, he's just going to keep saying flock of fish. So anytime you use an analogy to describe something, he thinks it's fair game to just say you're only arguing the analogy. You're not arguing some other theory that you say this is an analogy. So I've also used dancing as a description for time dilation. And so is that all the explanation? That's all the value you can understand from the analogy. That if you're dancing as fast as you can and I ask you to move in a direction, anybody with a little bit of logic can understand that the process of moving in a direction will mean you'll have to sacrifice the moves of your dance to do the sideways motion, so you won't be able to dance as fast. That means that that's all it is. It's a dancing theory, when clearly the theory applies to the function of matter. That matter's always busy. It's always running as fast as it can. It's always doing whatever it's doing at its peak performance. And if you make it do something else, like you make my material bits move in some other direction, then they can't do exactly what they were doing before, because now they're doing something else. And you can't understand that? You can't understand that if I hit a big steel ball with some energy, that the energy has to travel through all of the bits of the steel, every single atomic piece of the steel ball, and move it, to move it. And that's why it only moves a tiny bit when I hit it with something small, is because the force is spread over every single element of the steel ball. Anyway, so if that's the best you can do, that's the best you can do. Okay, you're just a trash talking, like as I pointed out, you're a raggy talking asswipe. If that's the best you can do. If that's all you got is an argument. And I say that particular combination of words solved everything. And again, I never said that. I never said flock of fish anyway, but whatever. Because even with a magical word combo, So again, there's something magical in describing the actual function of a school of fish. And there's something unscientific about saying, well, what if we change the circumstance and say the fish all move one speed and never slow down? And what if, you know, if we do that, we're not being thinking, proper inquisitors, proper skeptics and curious people. That's somehow a bad thing to do, is to ask what-if questions. All right, anyway, combination of words. Because even with the, we still have no content with the infinities. We still have to contend with the infinities. What infinities? That arise when transforming from the quantum to the macro scale. The infinities are in your magical world, where there's an infinite number of waves inside of a confined amount of distance. That's your principle. You believe that's a principle, a valid principle in physics, that there's an infinite number of something inside of a finite space. That's your magic. And your magic, well, that's a simplification. Doesn't undo the fact that you're completely dependent on the creation of that fake infinity. And that maybe you ought to re-examine your notions if you have to depend on fake infinities to make your silly ideas work. Fucking cunt. Lying piece of shit. Trash talking ass wipe. So just go ahead. Lie some more and I'll block you. So I'll delete what I feel is outrageous. You have no right to say, you have no right to lie about what I've said. And you have no right to contend you did something you haven't done. You can't claim you won an argument or you made an argument or you provided anything called evidence when you didn't do any of that shithead. So lie about what you've done or what I've done and I'll block you. Not complicated. Scumbag. Alright, so we'll play a little bit of the silly video. It was silly. Oh, we got no time. Yeah, 57. So we'll save that for another time. The, whatever it is, heart-shaped, yeah, it says, let's see, what was the title of it? A.K. Ken L. Wheeler, yes, so it's this guy, Scientifically. So, let's see if the, so he shows some of Ken's video and then he redraws it as a heart, which is quite hilarious. Well, it draws it as a lot, oh, there's the heart, yeah. So maybe that's enough of the video. I don't really know if I really want to waste time on people that look.
A heart shape. And this can be seen in Ken's.
Okay, so he thinks that when magnetism comes out, it does this swirly bit. Where's the evidence that the rays that come out of a magnet do any of this swirly shit? Again, when a magnet just produces straight rays, it's like a light bulb, all straight lines. And the field lines are just the lines that other magnets will line up on. But that's all they are. They're not real things. They're not a real phenomenon. The power of the magnet isn't going out one end and then coming back in the other end. None of that's happening. Like I said, I'll do a proper magnetism video in the near future. But anyways, yeah, there's no point in responding to this, right? I mean, this isn't anything called science. He calls himself Scientifically, and like he says, he has some sort of this is the halo theory or something, and he says he's inspired by God, and it's just too silly. But he shouldn't be able to call himself Scientifically because obviously he's obnoxious to the idea of science. Fucking people. Anyway, till next time.